Thank you, Mr. President. Well, in the ongoing fight over religious freedom legislation, we have now heard that the corporate leadership at Twitter has decided to sign onto the pledge saying that they oppose protections of religious freedom. I suppose we should not be surprised by that, since in 2012, Twitter began to collaborate with tyrannical regimes around the world to allow censorship of their own service, leading Reporters Without Borders to send them a letter demanding that they cease this practice, that they stop collaborating with repressive regimes to prevent people from expressing themselves using their own online platform. We've seen more recently Twitter censor voices, primarily voices on the right, by either blocking their accounts, taking away their verified status. So we shouldn't be surprised that if Twitter doesn't like the free speech part of the First Amendment, that they also would object to the free exercise part of the First Amendment. And I know I received a letter via email today, I assume most of you did as well, from Salesforce. And in the email, they call on us to abandon the First Amendment Defense Act. I think it's instructive to read the email and see what words are missing. For example, the email says, "We support the efforts of the Metro Atlanta Chamber and other major employers in the state who are working to protect all Georgians against discrimination." And there's a period. There ought to be a little bit more language. "Except people of faith who have sincere religious beliefs. It's okay to discriminate against them. It's okay for government to punish them." That is the position that Salesforce takes over and over again. And as long as this debate has been going on, I have drawn this body's attention time and again to the fact that while the leadership of this company uses the Georgia General Assembly as a convenient foil, while pretending that House Bill 757 is something other than a modest protection of religious freedom, they do business in India, they do business in Singapore, countries where being homosexual is a crime, countries where acting, living out your sexual orientation is an offense that can lead to 2 years of imprisonment. Now, finally, and I thank the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for asking executives at Salesforce, what about this glaring hypocrisy? And they issued a statement where they said, well, we're talking about Georgia. And at the end of it, they said, however, we do whatever we can to protect our employees and customers from discrimination. Well, that's just simply not true. They have voluntarily chosen to invest in countries where being homosexual is a crime. So if they mean what they say, then it should be very simple. If they're really saying we'll do whatever we can, I have a modest suggestion. Simply pull out of India and Singapore. Get your business operations out of there. Stop spending money. Stop paying taxes to prop up regimes that have actual anti-gay laws. There was also reporting about certain conventions, Dragon Con, the sociologists' convention, that might choose to go elsewhere if we dare protect the religious freedom of the 10 million citizens of this state. And I just wonder, when we talk about these companies, Mr. President, can we add some desks in the back of the chamber so that we can run, any public policy that we have before this body to make sure that no one is going to be made uncomfortable and decide to leave the state? And the fact of the matter is, what this all comes down to is that people want to create a new right, a right to not be offended. And as I said the other day, in a free society, the price of admission is you're going to be offended. You're going to be offended by something somebody says or does. But if we stop protecting sincerely held religious beliefs, if we say we're going to aggregate to the government the authority to determine what you may or may not believe, or what religious practices you may or may not engage in, then it's not just an assault on religious freedom. It's an assault on every single one of our individual civil liberties. Today we're talking about free exercise. Tomorrow we may be talking about the Second Amendment, but the argument would be exactly the same. And so it is time here and now to draw the line and say, we're going to stand up. We're going to stand up for each and every individual civil liberty protected by the Constitution, and we are not going to be extorted into abandoning sound public policy because a couple of folks who are far left decide that they're going to attempt to extort the state of Georgia. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.